Data Visualizations. Follow along with the links in the description and create your own stunning Excel dashboard today. To start this visualization masterclass, we're going to go over to Kaggle.com. If you're not familiar with Kaggle, it's a list of hundreds of data sets that you can find online for a variety of categories. Click download and you're done. Once you've opened up this file, you should see two documents, NOC_regions and athlete events. NOC regions being the lookup for the athlete events document. Now, let's start here. First of all, what we're going to want to do is make sure we don't touch this raw data. I'm going to call it raw. I'll even change the color of this tab so I know I don't touch it. And then I'm going to duplicate the data with the move or copy and create a copy at the end. This is our data. Now, why have I done this? Well, if we make a mistake and we want to go back, it'll be easy to do that if we keep the original raw dataset file and don't touch it. So we'll work from this and not the raw. But let's explore this dataset. This is a historical dataset on modern Olympic Games, all the way from Athens 1896 to Rio 2016. Each row corresponds to an individual athlete competing in an individual Olympic event. You can see down here we have the ID, which is the unique number for each athlete. We have their name, sex, age, a lot of values here to analyze. An NOC. It's a three-letter code which associates the other document within the zip file. Open the NOC regions. Let's get rid of the notes here. And you'll see each NOC is related to a different region. Now within our Excel workbook, which we've just created, I don't want CHN, that's not something meaningful to me. I want it to say what it's really associated with. Very simple. And this is part of the data cleaning and augmentation process, one of the most important and crucial aspects of visualization and data analysis. So let's insert a new tab. What we're going to do here is we're just going to call it region. Feel free to call it whatever you like. And we're going to do something interesting here. So we're going to do VLOOKUP equals VLOOKUP, this value, and we've taught this all in the previous video. Look it up in this array here, in the second column of that array. We're going to type false because we want an exact match, not an approximation. And wherever it finds CHN from that list, it'll type China. We'll drag it down with a double click. Now, we don't want this code up here. We want it just to say the name of the value. So we'll copy and paste as a value. Control C, paste, values. And there we go. In fact, we'll even delete this. Now, if we did want it, that's why it's important to keep the raw data. Equally, we could just reverse the VLOOKUP process. What is our dependent variable here? What is it that we want to find out? Well, we can look at the number of medals. We'll open a new sheet and I'll call it dashboard for our visualizations. What we're going to do here is utilize pivot tables. So Control A, insert pivot table. We'll do it into the existing dashboard worksheet and hit OK. But let's say we want to look at medals and how many people, or here we use the ID, got each of the medals. From here, we can insert a pivot chart. Now, by inserting a pivot chart, it will update when the values in the pivot table do. So let's take a look here. Now, this is good, but it could be better. These lines in the background aren't adding too much for me, so I'll delete them. I also don't require this legend, so I'll delete that. Equally, the title isn't very helpful. So let's change that from total. Then let's color code. I'm going to double click on NA, go to home and make that grey, silver and bronze a more browny bronze color. But feel free to mess around with this. Equally, you can go to the design section and change some of the look here. Perhaps you want it to look more like this, that, or even this. But again, this is where the customizability of Excel really comes into play. Let me demonstrate now that if I change this from an average to a count, it would update the pivot chart. Now, I don't want both these on the same page. I want a separate dashboard page. So I'm going to keep an analysis tab. I'm going to paste in the pivot table there. And for this page, I'm going to keep it nice and pretty and change the background color. Perhaps I want a title. We'll do that here. And we can have a lower color here. Maybe we want the title to say we can increase the text size or even change the font. The rest of the background, I'm going to make it just an off-white coloring. And there we have a very basic beginning to a dashboard. Another element you can introduce is shapes. We'll do this, send it to the back, and remove the background of this visualization under the format, shape fill, no fill. And there we go. Of course you can't read the text, but then again, we can just make that white. One other element you may want to introduce is a slicer. Let's click here, go to Pivot Chart Analyze, and then insert a slicer. We want to look at it by sex. Now when we see this, and of course we can edit its dimensions and style here, or apply custom formatting. But when we click on something such as F for female, it'll update the chart so just the females in that data set. Let's move this away and create a section just for our slicer. You may want the slicer to affect other pivot tables. You can check that here to ensure that it's a global slicer and doesn't only influence one pivot table at a time. Let's look at medals by sex. I know we have this here, but let's try a different chart. Again, we can go to the data, select it all, insert a pivot table, and put it in the existing analysis sheet by sex. And there you go. And this is just a total count of medals. We'll select this, insert a pivot chart. We'll change its design under design and change chart type. We want it to be a pie, and I'll pick a donut chart here. So we'll put it in here, and again we can do all the same changes to the visualizations and the formatting. But we can also change the colors to make it more legible. So now I've got it broke down by medals, by gender, and for total number of medals. Equally, we could explore region. Now we may want to put a background on this. We won't worry too much for now. Feel free to play around in your own time with this very data set. And let's go to center back. This time, rather than creating an entirely new pivot table, we'll just copy one of the other ones. Right click, show field list. Let's find region, put that there, and here you go. And we want the count of athletes in each region. You'll note that if we select all the data, let's go to map. This also doesn't work because you can't create one with a pivot chart. We'll copy all the data, move it right next door and paste it as a value. Although we'll remove this bottom value here. Then, once everything's selected, we can go to Insert, Maps, click, and Done. Again, you can change the chart design. All of this can be added into the dashboard. Now, I've only shown you the very high-level basics here. Now, let me flash on screen an example that I produced earlier. You could see you can get very advanced with a variety of visualizations showing distributions, regions, and pie charts, line graphs, and even filtering it down with the slicers. So all the best, and comment below what you managed to create.